This storyline is unfolding like a slow-burning disaster in Salem, where the physical injuries are only the surface-level consequences of something far darker and more emotionally destructive. The hospital emergencies coming up are not isolated incidents. They are the inevitable fallout of prolonged captivity, fear, betrayal, and psychological unraveling. Every patient who ends up in a hospital bed carries the weight of what they endured in the DiMera crypt, and the ripple effects of that trauma will touch nearly every corner of the canvas. Theo Carver's medical crisis is the first alarm bell that something has gone terribly wrong. His collapse isn't just an accident, it's the result of relentless stress, fear, and physical exhaustion. Being held captive strips a person of control, safety, and dignity, and Theo has been quietly absorbing all of that terror while trying to stay strong. When he suddenly collapses and hits his head, it sends shockwaves through everyone who loves him. The urgency of rushing him to the hospital reopens old wounds for Abe Carver, who has already lived through more than his share of fear when it comes to his family. The waiting room becomes a place of unbearable tension, filled with questions no one can answer right away. Is there internal bleeding? Has there been brain damage? Will Theo wake up the same person he was before? Even though spoilers promise he will recover physically, the emotional cost is immense. The kidnapping nightmare doesn't simply end with rescue. It follows Theo straight into the hospital, reminding everyone that survival doesn't mean escape from consequences. Kristen DiMera's hospitalization is far more volatile and layered. When she is finally freed from captivity, her body tells the story of prolonged suffering. A serious wound, untreated for too long, combined with a raging fever, signals just how close she came to something much worse. Doctors focus on stabilizing her condition, but it quickly becomes clear that her physical injuries are only part of the crisis. Kristen's mental state is dangerously unstable. Fever, trauma, fear for Rachel, and simmering paranoia blend into a perfect storm. Kristen has always lived on the edge emotionally, but this experience pushes her past it. Her thoughts become erratic, her emotions explosive, and her ability to trust anyone completely shattered. What makes Kristen's condition especially alarming is how quickly her trauma turns outward. She isn't just afraid, she's angry, suspicious, and desperate to assign blame. Her mind keeps replaying the captivity, searching for meaning, for a villain she can punish. That's where Peter Blake becomes entangled in her unraveling. At first, seeing her brother in the crypt brings relief. Peter represents familiarity, shared history, and a connection to Stefano's twisted legacy. But that comfort doesn't last. Kristen begins to wonder if Peter is performing, if he's manipulating the situation, if he's more involved than he claims. These suspicions grow louder as her fever spikes and her grip on reality loosens. The shift from relief to rage is terrifyingly fast. Kristen, already weakened and unstable, lashes out at Peter in a violent confrontation that leaves him injured. This is not a calculated attack. It's raw, impulsive, and driven by fear masquerading as certainty. When Peter ends up hospitalized, the irony is brutal. Kristen, who needed help herself, becomes the cause of someone else's emergency. In her clearer moments, guilt crashes over her. She begs Peter for forgiveness, desperate to undo what she's done, but the damage is irreversible. Peter's response is pure fury. He doesn't want her apologies, her tears, or her presence. When he screams at her to get out, it's not just anger, it's betrayal. Whatever bond they shared as siblings adopted by Stefano fractures completely in that moment. Peter's hospital stay is emotionally charged because it's about more than his injuries. Lying in that bed, he's forced to confront the reality that Kristen is no longer someone he can trust, and possibly someone he now sees as a threat. That resentment doesn't fade easily. Even after he heals, the grudge he holds could fuel future revenge, especially in a family where retaliation is practically a tradition. Around them, the rest of the DiMera family is struggling to process their own survival. Tony DiMera emerges weak and shaken, his strength clearly compromised by captivity, but his reunion with Anna provides a kind of emotional medicine no four can deliver. Their connection reminds him why survival mattered in the first place. Chad DiMera, on the other hand, barely pauses to think about medical evaluations. His sole focus is reuniting with Thomas and Charlotte. For Chad, emotional safety outweighs physical pain, and the moment he sees his children again becomes his true recovery. E.J. DiMera, despite not being held as long, isn't immune to concern. Kat Green urging him to get checked out underscores a lingering unease. After everything that's happened, no one trusts appearances anymore. Just because someone looks fine doesn't mean they are. The crypt has proven that hidden damage is often the most dangerous kind. By the time Salem's hospital fills with these victims, it becomes clear that the real emergency isn't just medical, it's emotional and psychological. Theo's collapse exposes the silent toll of captivity. Kristen's hospitalization reveals how trauma can twist fear into violence. Peter's injuries show how quickly family bonds can turn into lifelong grudges. These hospital beds are not endpoints. They are launching points for new conflicts, deeper scars, and long-term consequences that will continue to shape Salem long after the physical wounds have healed. As Days of Our Lives moves forward, the question won't be who survives, but who truly recovers.